Thor was imprisoned. His body was chained not far from Surtur, the seat of the fire demon. Surtur's stories about Ragnarok, or the apocalypse he would bring against Asgard, were heard by Thor when he was bound and hanging. Rather than being irritated or angry, Thor relaxed about the story. Thor summoned Mjolnir and broke free from his bindings when he had the opportunity. He faced Surtur's army alone before chopping off the fire demon's horns and crown and taking him with him. Thor accomplished this because if the crown combined with Asgard's eternal fire, Ragnarok would occur and destroy Asgard. Thor later used Bifrost to return to Asgard, but it was too late. Thor discovers in Asgard that the custodian of the Bifrost is not Heimdall, but someone named Skurg. Skurg said that Heimdall had betrayed Asgard and fled. Thor, on the other hand, did not believe this and quickly went to Asgard to investigate the abnormalities he sensed. He apparently discovered a figure like Odin seated and attending a theater performance of Loki's epic story. Thor immediately recognized Odin in front of him as Loki in disguise, thanks to the incredible Loki statue he came across. Thor reveals Loki's disguise to the Asgardians present after ordering a warrior to guard Surtur's crown. Then he asked his brother to show him where Odin was at that time. Thor and Loki return to New York and receive hospitality from Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange then sent Thor and Loki to Odin's location, where they met him. Odin was resigned and waiting for death, so both brothers were taken aback. Odin also revealed Thor and Loki a terrible tale about their eldest sister, Hela. In short, Odin died, and his death broke the seal that had been holding Hela captive. Hela, the goddess of death, arrived in front of Thor and Loki. Odin's statements about Hela's strength and ruthlessness were not a fiction of his mind. Hela clearly seized Mjolnir effortlessly and splintered Thor's hammer into fragments. Loki directed Skurg to transport them in the Bifrost, but Hela caught up with them. He threw Loki and Thor out of the Bifrost, leaving him alone to approach Asgard. Hela killed Volstagg and Thor's other companions quickly, but she let the cowardly Skurg live and become her servant. The entire Asgard army was then led by Hogun to apprehend Hela. Unfortunately, Hela, like Odin, will obtain complete power if she makes it to Asgard. So, using her incredible might, Hela killed the entire Asgard army as well as Hogun. Meanwhile, Thor arrives at what appears to be a dumping heap. A gang of scavengers arrives and arrests him, but a woman named Scrapper frees him. Scrapper, on the other hand, disables Thor with a disc and arrests him. Scrapper then sells Thor to the Grandmaster, the ruler of the planet Sakaar. Surprisingly, Thor and Loki meet in the Grandmaster's residence. Loki had been on Sakaar for nearly 2 weeks due to the relativity of time and space and had become one of the Grandmaster's confidants. Later, the Grandmaster appointed Thor as his gladiator to compete in a battle of champions against his reigning champion. Thor had become acquainted with a Kronan planet species named Korg and his friend, Meek, prior to the combat. Thor also had the opportunity to reunite with Scrapper, another Asgardian. Thor recognizes Scrapper as a Valkyrie after noticing the tattoo on her wrist. Valkyrie is a female warrior who battled alongside Odin to defeat Hela. Unfortunately, Valkyrie has lost interest in the status of Asgard because she is the only survivor of the battle with the goddess of death. When the time came for Thor to fight, he was both startled and delighted to find out that the champion he had to face was the Hulk. However, the Hulk continued to attack him, forcing Thor to fight back. Hulk had defeated Thor in a way identical to how he had defeated Loki in that ferocious one-on-one encounter. The dying Thor, on the other hand, beheld Odin in his consciousness and reawakened the power of lightning within him. Meanwhile, Hela has ascended to Asgard's throne. He harnessed the eternal fires to resurrect his army, the ancient Asgard army. He also reared a gigantic wolf, Fenris, his cherished mount. Hela then appointed Scourge as her executioner. He also directed Scourge to execute any Asgardian who refused to submit or recognize her as queen. Heimdall, on the other side, steals the Bifrost sword and transports it to the location where the loyal citizens of Asgard are hidden. A newly awoken Thor, on the other hand, finds himself in a room with the Hulk. Thor convinced Hulk to accompany him to Sakaar, but the Green Giant declined. Hulk, on the other hand, had told Thor that he had arrived in Sakaar aboard a Quinjet since departing Sokovia. Thor soon discovered the location of the Quinjet and planned to utilize it to flee Sakaar. The Hulk then caught up with him and asked Thor to stay in Asgard. The Grandmaster discovers that Thor has departed and that his champion, the Hulk, has vanished. He directed Scrapper and Loki to return them. Loki also discovers Scrapper's true identity as Valkyrie. As a result, the Valkyrie deemed it unsafe and immobilized it. Meanwhile, Thor, while attempting to activate the Quinjet engine, reveals footage of Natasha Romanoff attempting to contact the Hulk. Hulk, who had also seen the tape, was shaken and reverted to Bruce Banner. For 2 years, Bruce had no idea the Hulk had taken over his body. Thor sent Bruce to get another plane to leave Sakaar, but Valkyrie discovered them midway and brought them to her home. Valkyrie was apparently holding Loki at his residence. Valkyrie, who had learned of Odin's death and Hela's revival from Thor, was eager to help avert Asgard's destruction. In short, Thor founded his own team, the Revengers, with Bruce, Valkyrie, and Loki. Hela was once an executioner as well as a general who assisted Odin in expanding Asgard's sovereignty. Odin, greatly to Hela's dismay, paused his expansion after conquering the 9 kingdoms. Odin, realizing that he couldn't stop Hela's ambition, decided to imprison his daughter. Hela, who believes Odin betrayed her, now plans to reclaim control of Asgard and all other realms. Hela also knows Heimdall is the one who evacuated Asgard's population. He soon discovered where Heimdall was concealing the Asgardians and raided them with Scourge and his famous soldiers. Fortunately, Heimdall used his telepathy to tell Thor how to depart Sakaar. Thor and Loki, meanwhile, are attempting to hijack the Grandmaster's private plane. Thor was about to betray Loki again when he realized he could use the plane to flee. After rescuing the gladiators, Valkyrie and Bruce join Thor. Despite having a difficult time with the chasing Grandmasters, they entered the largest wormhole and left Sakaar. Korg and Meek, on the other hand, who led the gladiators' escape, met Loki. Loki used his wits to persuade Korg and the gladiators to accompany him to Asgard. Hela attacks Heimdall in Asgard for the Bifrost sword and instructs the Scourges to execute the other Asgardians. Thor, Valkyrie, and Bruce, on the other hand, arrive just in time. While Thor engaged Hela right away, Valkyrie and Bruce were charged with protecting Asgard's population from Hela's army. Fenris, Hela's huge wolf, overwhelms Heimdall, so Bruce chooses to step down and assist. Despite his limitations, Bruce transformed into the Hulk and attacked Fenris right away. Thor was completely overpowered by Hela, who even blinded him in one eye. However, Thor received another vision from Odin and was able to reawaken his real lightning strength in the absence of Mjolnir. With that power, he knocked Hela off her feet and slaughtered many of the goddess of death's warriors. Thor quickly went to Valkyrie's location and discovered Loki and Korg, as well as the gladiators, had joined forces to save the residents of Asgard. Even yet, Thor recognized he would never be able to defeat Hela. In his vision, Thor recalls Odin's counsel that Asgard is a place where Asgardians live their lives. As a result, Thor resolved to take with him all of Asgard's remaining residents. They were able to resurrect Surtur and bring the Ragnarok notion to reality with Loki's assistance. Surtur, in the shape of a giant with the power of perpetual fire, quickly destroys the entire Asgard. The Revengers must work against the clock to save the residents of Asgard, which is on the point of collapse. Scourge, who had been concealing by mingling among the Asgardians, also played a role. Perhaps he had had enough of being a coward and chose to pick up arms and fight the remaining Hela warriors. Unfortunately, Hela, who was still alive, killed Scourge before attacking Surtur. Meanwhile, Thor and his staff made certain that their jet had accommodated all Asgardians before departing Asgard. Thor and his companions watched the destruction of Asgard from afar. Of course, Hela, who was still present, died as well. Except for Thor, no one else can or deserves to govern the Asgardians. Loki, on the other hand, has resolved to make peace, this time without deception, and welcomes his brother as Asgard's leader. Thor, together with Valkyrie, Loki, Heimdall, and Bruce, accepted his crown and led them to a new home.